All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we are going to begin with our misdemeanor. With our misdemeanor calendar. This is a first appearance of new misdemeanor cases. Individuals were recently arrested and booked at the Fulton County Jail. Soon thereafter, their cases were formally accused. So this would be the defendant's first appearance with regard to these new charge or charges. When your name is called, please come forward and I will let you know what's your new case number, what are the charges brought against you, to appoint counsel for you if necessary, as well as to set a bond. Some of you may qualify for what we call a signature bond. You won't have to pay for that bond, but you would have to comply with certain conditions or risk the chance of losing the signature bond and having it converted to a straight bond, a surety bond, or a cash bond. Those of you who don't qualify for a signature bond will receive either a surety bond or a cash bond, depending on the circumstances of your case, your criminal record history, and so forth. Please remember that if you're a defendant charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say during the course of this virtual proceeding that's not only being recorded but live streamed, your statements can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case. So if you need to say anything about your case, speak with your attorney quietly and separately and in private. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, you're entitled to an appointed counsel. So let's begin with courtroom 2. Who do we have?
This is going to be position number 4, Mr. Luther Brookins.
Okay. This is State versus Luther Brookins, accused of pointing or aiming a gun or pistol at another from February 23rd, 2024. His accusation number is 24 CR 7119F. Mr. Brookins, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean. All right. Ms. McKechnie, we don't have a pretrial officer at the present time. If you would like to recommend a bond as well as comment on his GCIC if you have one.
Yes, Your Honor. It looks like he has 2 arrest cycles out of Georgia, 1 arrest cycle out of Alabama, and 4 arrest cycles out of California. His last arrest was a 2019 driving without a valid license, and he also has a 2018 crimes against person harassment out of Alabama. This incident occurred at the Kroger located at 2300 Holcomb Bridge Road in Roswell. The defendant is accused of pointing a gun at Sophia Kimbrough, Mark Cates, and Robert Ross, who were all managers at the Kroger the defendant used to work at. Earlier in the day, the defendant was found on the floor of the deli department and was escorted to the manager's office. While in the office, he pushed past one of the managers and then stumbled into the parking lot. The victims in this case tried to persuade him not to drive, and they told him they would call an Uber, but the defendant just yelled at them and then proceeded to grab a gun from his car and point it at the victims before he drove away. We have spoken with 2 of the victims, Mr. Mark Cates and Miss Sophia Kimbrough. Mr. Cates said the defendant arrived to his shift drunk and fell asleep on the floor, that they were getting together paperwork to terminate him when he became belligerent. And then they followed him outside and he pulled out his gun and pointed it at them and said, "Leave me the F alone." Mr. Cates, of course, wants no contact and wants him to stay away. Ms. Kimbrough said basically the same sentiments. She stated this is not the first time the defendant has been drunk at work. The first time she called an Uber for him, but this time she did have to terminate him. The state's recommendation is for a $1,000 surety bond, that he have no further contact with any of these victims, that he stay away from that Kroger location, that he undergo an ADET, he surrender all firearms, and have no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. I believe some of the victims are on the Zoom, so I would ask that you sound for Miss Sophia Kimbrough, Mark Cates, or Robert Ross.
Ms. Kimbrough, Mr. Cates, or Mr. Ross, if you'd like to chime in, this is the time to unmute and start your video.
Yes, this is Mark Cates.
Mr. Cates, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
Have you had any contact with Mr. Brookins since the incident?
I have not.
All right. What would you like to tell me?
So his actions were very severe, in my opinion, to pull a gun and point it at somebody. I don't know what he had in mind, but he was extremely agitated and aggressive. I was very concerned for my life.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Ms. Kimbrough or Mr. Ross? All right. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client is 54 years old. He does have the arrest record that that was called out about the Georgia and Alabama stuff. He has that. He is currently unemployed. He's still looking for a job. He does have the deli type skills, so he will probably continue to work in that area if he can get work. He's been in Georgia for about 15 years. He's originally from California, but he's been in Georgia for about 15 years, so I think we can call him pretty local. He has a stable address on Hyde Park Lane in Lithonia, and that stable address is that he gets good mail service there and rents a room from the owner of that house. So we've asked the court to consider overall in the circumstances to consider a signature bond, and if not possible, a low surety bond.
Okay. Bond is set at $1,000. It is a surety bond. Next court date is 31st, October 31st at 9 a.m. To stay away from the Kroger store at 2300 Holcomb Bridge Road. To have no contact with Mark Cates, Sophia Kimbrough, and Robert Ross. To surrender all firearms that he possesses to the local police within 7 days of being released for destruction. He's not allowed to own a firearm until further order of the court. He's not to consume any alcohol and no illegal drugs. Thank you.
There we go. Next, Your Honor, we're gonna go to position number 8, Mr. Charles Porter.
This is State versus Charles Gary, Garey, Porter III, case number 24CR 7121B. Mr. Porter is accused of a fray fighting from October 16th, 2024. Mr. Porter, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is going to be, is it Mr. Cook?
Hey, Your Honor, good
Ms.
afternoon.
McLeod? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Your attorney is Ms. Maureen McLeod.
We have a companion case as well, Sonia Stevens. I don't know.
Oh, next one? Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
And let's see, is Sonia Stevens in courtroom too?
That's negative, Your Honor. She's in ACDC. They haven't logged on as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Porter, let's see now, is Mr. Howard with us yet? No? Okay. Ms. Todd, if you'd like to briefly touch on Mr. Porter's GCIC and make your recommendation.
Mr. Porter does have a 2010 disorderly conduct, a 2012 willful obstruction of law enforcement officers, and a 2020 simple battery. He also has a open battery involving Miss Sonia Stevens, the same victim in this case, Your Honor. This incident, as you stated, occurred on the 16th of October of this year. Officers responded to a fight in progress at the West End MARTA station. When they arrived, they spoke with Mr. Porter and Miss Stevens. Mr. Porter had been pushed into another patron by Miss Stevens. Mr. Porter then grabbed Miss Stevens, slammed her to the ground, and the two began hitting each other. The state is asking for a $5,000 cash bond in this case, Your Honor. Due to his history and the fact that he also has an open case of battery involving Miss Stevens just from earlier this year, we are asking for no further contact with Miss Stevens, a stay away from all MARTA properties, an anger management course, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Ms. McLeod?
So, Your Honor, my client is 38 years old. He does not have a significant criminal history. His history, other than that earlier episode that was mentioned earlier this year with the alleged cross-defendant, is pretty minimal. My client is gainfully employed. He lives here in Atlanta and has always lived here. He tells me that the cross-defendant was completely intoxicated, and the warrant says that. He says that he was trying to calm her down because she was being belligerent. And the warrant supports that as well, because he says that she was the one who struck him. He said he was just trying to calm her down, and that was all. She was the one who started the entire thing. He tells me that he does not wish to have any contact with her at all. I also believe I asked him, I was not able to verify for myself whether or not the previous incident between them, whether the bond condition was no further violent contact or no contact. And he told me, to his understanding, it was no further violent contact. But
Really?
that's what
Okay,
he tells me. That was his understanding, Your Honor. I have not seen the
that's
warrant.
fine. Um,
So
Right.
I would ask,
Okay.
I just saw him on October 4th of just this month. Are we still in October? Yeah, we are. Okay. On
well,
October
I
4th.
was unaware of that, Your Honor. I thought the state said it was earlier this year,
Yeah,
and
October
not earlier
4th.
this month. So
Yes.
I don't know what the circumstances of his previous appearance was.
Well,
But
let's see. 24 CR 006-850B. He got a $1,500 surety bond, which he clearly made. And I required him to have no contact, NFC, no further contact with Sonia Stevens, and stay away from all Marta property until further order of the court. So not only was he required to stay 200 yards away from Ms. Stevens, he was required to stay 200 yards away from any Marta property. So now we have a new incident at the West End Marta station involving Ms. Sonia Stevens. So in a nutshell, that's the
Your Honor,
situation, Ms.
I
McLeod.
was unaware of that, because when I asked him, he told me that his understanding was that it was no further violent contact.
Well, Ms. McLeod, you've been with enough proceedings with me to know that I repeat this over and over again.
I know you
So,
do, Your Honor.
right. On the new charge, is going to be a $5,000 surety bond. In case you didn't understand the first time around, Mr. Porter the third, hopefully you will listen now. Just like I previously ordered you on October 4th, you are required to stay 200 yards away from all Marta property, whether it's a bus station or a train station, the sidewalk, the parking lot, the bathrooms, and so forth. You are not allowed into any Marta property, and you're not allowed to use any Marta services. The same goes with Miss Sonia Stevens. You are required to stay 200 yards away from her physical person. You're not allowed to communicate with her in any way, form, or manner, including a phone, a computer device, in person, mail, email, and you're not even allowed to discuss her or reference her on social media. Is that clear enough, Ms. McLeod?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Porter, do you understand me? All right. $5,000 surety bond. Next court date is October 31st. And Ms. Strong, we will be addressing both the cases. Thank you. Ms. McLeod, we'll address both these cases and on Halloween. How's that?
Your Honor, that would be appropriate. So I'm going to check on his other case, because it probably would be appropriate for me to be representing him in both.
All right. Do you need the case number?
Yes, Your Honor.
24 CR 006-850 BS and Bob.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Next
y'all-
case, please.
We can go to the other case. ACDC's logged on.
All right. There we are. Okay. Good afternoon, Deputy Milton.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. This is Miss Sonia Stevens.
All right, Ms. Stevens is accused of affray and public drunk from October 16 involving an encounter with Mr. Charles Porter III. Her case number is 24 CR 007-122A. Mr. Cook, you represent her?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And Ms. Stevens, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, Mr. Keith Cook will be representing you. And any priors? Mr. Howard hasn't joined us yet. Oh,
I'm
he
here.
has. Yes, all right. Mr. Howard, any priors?
21, open shoplifting, damage to property. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. On probation for ag assault in Rockdale. Also on probation for felony terrorist threats in Clayton County. 2021 simple battery conviction. 2019 simple battery DV conviction. 2017 battery DV conviction.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Ms. Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just
In
the
addition,
bond recommendation. I've already read all the warrants.
yes, Your Honor, for the affray, the state is recommending a $1,500 surety bond. For the public drunk, the state is recommending a $500 surety bond. No further contact with Mr. Charles Porter. Stay away from MARTA, anger management, and no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Mr. Cook?
Yes, Your Honor. It's my client's position that Mr. Porter was the initial aggressor here and she was defending herself. Beyond that, she is 35 years old. She is not currently working, so we'd hope to keep the bond as low as possible. Actually, I don't really object to the level of the bonds requested by the state here.
All right. On the affray, it's going to be 1,000. On the public drunk, it's going to be 500. Her total bond is 1,500 surety. No further contact with Charles Porter III. Ms. Stevens, you're required to stay 200 yards away from Mr. Porter and not have any kind of contact with him. You're also required to stay away from all MARTA property until further order of the court. No alcohol, no illegal drugs, and no firearms. Next court date is going to be October 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. May we be excused, please?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Milton. Have a good one. Courtroom 2, who do we have?
This is gonna be position number 10, Mr. Daniel Stevenson.
All of my business before the court is complete. May I be excused?
Yes, Ms. McLeod. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Daniel Luke Stevenson's accused of battery from October 17th, 2024, and his case number is 24 CR 7123A. Mr. Stevenson, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is going to be.
Your Honor, can you read him his rights again? Two people came in the courtroom late.
All right. For those of you who just arrived late to the courtroom, this is a misdemeanor calendar in which this would be your first appearance before a judge after being arrested. Please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you say during the course of this virtual proceeding that's not only being recorded but live streamed, your statements can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case. You have a right to counsel. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you. So, Mr. Stevenson, as I've said, you're accused of battery. I don't have any public counsel who is popping up on screen. So, Mr. Stevenson, who is your attorney?
It's Mr. McLean.
Okay. Mr. Michael McLean, please unmute and start your video.
I don't even see him.
No, this is Miss Lewis. I think he got the log back on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Your Honor, we'll just go to another case. Go sit over there.
All right. Do we have any cases involving Mr. Cook?
Yes, we're gonna go to position number 5, Mr. Antoine Jackson.
Antoine Jackson's case number is 24CR7104B. Mr. Jackson, you've been advised of your rights. You have 3 misdemeanor charges stemming from an October 16th, 2024 incident. The charges are giving false information to an officer, theft by shoplifting, and giving false name, address, or birth date. Seems kind of redundant, but those are the charges. Looks like Mr. Jackson's case was reset from yesterday. So, Mr. Jackson, your attorney is going to be Mr. Cook. Any priors, Mr. Howard? First appearance, first cycle, first arrest. Thank you. And how old is he?
He's 20, Your Honor.
20 years old. Okay. All right. And Ms. Mukeki?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's recommendation is going to be for a signature bond, a stay away from all Kroger locations, and no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. The defendant is accused of stealing $115 worth of groceries from that Kroger location. When asked for his identifying information, he said his name was Antoine Johnson, and then also gave officers a false date of birth of April 12th, 2004.
Mr. Cook, on the giving false information, count 1, that's going to be 1,000. Theft by shoplifting is 1,000, and giving false information, false name, that's going to be 500. His total bond is 2,500. Signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. Mr. Jackson, I'm going to give you a release bond, but you would have to comply with the conditions in order to make sure that you don't give us a reason to arrest you again and have your bond revoked. So you'll need to report to pretrial once a month. You're to stay away from the Kroger store in question. And you cannot get arrested again. If you violate those conditions, your signature bond will be converted to either a surety bond or a cash bond. So if by some sheer bad luck, you're back at the Fulton County Jail and your signature bond is revoked, please be sure to bring $2,500 with you. Make sure that you report to court when summoned, and then to do that, you have to make sure that we have your correct mailing address. We'll send you notice for your next court date. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no firearms. Thank you.
Your Honor, does age 20 through pretrial require a cosigner?
Cosigner is normally a contractual agreement, so anyone who's over 18, unless the case calls for it.
Okay, thank you.
You go sit in the third row. Your Honor, can we go back to position number 10? Mr. McLean is on.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Mr. McLean, can you hear us, sir? If you could please unmute.
I can hear you. What is position 10? I don't have the position number.
Is position 10. The client is Daniel Luke Stevenson, accused of battery from October 17th. Mr. Howard? First arrest? Okay. Miss Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. On October 17th, 2024, Mr. Stevenson was being transported by Miss Keandra Jones in Grady Bus 779. As they were approaching Grady Hospital, Miss Jones continued to hear the door opening and closing. When she went to check on Mr. Stevenson, he exited the EMS and struck her in the face, leaving a bruise and laceration on the right side of her face. Miss Jones should be present on the Zoom today. For a bond, Your Honor, the state is asking for a $1,000 surety bond. Stay away from Grady Hospital. No further contact with Miss Keandra Jones. That's KEANDRA Jones, common spelling. Anger management, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Miss Keandra Jones, if you would like to contribute to the proceeding, please unmute and start your video.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Miss Jones. If you'd like to say something, I need to place you under oath.
Okay, right.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were the EMS driver and Mr. Stevenson was the patient being transported?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And to where was he being transported?
The Grady Memorial Hospital.
All right. And was there anything else you'd like to add other than what the prosecutor has told me?
No, other than I was terrified for my life after he chased me down and slapped me. And he showed no remorse after he hit me.
All right. Thank you. Mr. McLean?
You know, I think Mr. Stevenson, my client, would benefit from a social worker visit to see if further evaluation or treatment is necessary. I don't have anything but an assertion that this is his first arrest. I have not contacted his father. I have an address which is not on the documents. And so we're dealing with that level of information, Your Honor. Sorry.
All right. Bond is set at 2,500. It is a surety bond. No further contact with Keandra Jones. To stay away from Grady Hospital unless he is seeking emergency treatment or has an appointment with a specific healthcare provider. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. Thank you. Next court date is October 31st.
Right. We'll go see what they- Next, y'all, is gonna be position number 12, Fabian Terry.
Prebian Terry, Terriri's case number is 24 CR 7127B. Mr. Terry is accused of criminal trespass and theft by shoplifting from October 17th, 2024. Mr. Terry, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
24,
24 cycles?
2023 FTA, 2022 FTA, 2021 shoplifting conviction, 2 of them, one from 2020, one from 2013, and a 2021 shoplifting out of Mississippi.
Was that a conviction too?
It just shows as an arrest.
All right.
So he got what, 2, 3, 4 so far?
How many shoplifting convictions?
2, 3, 4.
4 shoplifting convictions. So technically speaking, this should be a felony charge.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Todd, what's the recommendation?
Thank you, Your Honor. The recommendation in this case is a $1,000 surety bond for the criminal trespass, a $1,000 surety bond for the theft by shoplifting, a stay away from the Sprouts at 1845 Piedmont Avenue, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. On October 17th, 2024, Mr. Terry went into the Sprouts at the previously mentioned address, which he was previously issued a criminal trespass warning for on October 16th. When he went in there, the employees tried to get him to exit, and he said that he would hurt them with a fire extinguisher if they did not leave him alone. He then walked out of the store, picking up some candy as he left, not paying for it.
Okay. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client tells me that he has a stable address on Lindbergh Drive. He gave the house number and the zip code.
Mm-hmm.
He tells me that he's self-employed. He tells me that he has a bachelor's degree. I have reached his mother. She would like to hear from him. He's asking the court to consider, simply because of the nature of the charges, signature bond. If that.
Okay. Is Miss Terry on Zoom, Mom? No? Okay. On the criminal trespass, it's going to be 500.
All right.
On the theft by shoplifting is 750. Total bond is 1,250. Mr. Terry, in the state of Georgia, when you have 3 or more theft by shoplifting convictions, it is up to the prosecutor to decide whether you qualify for whether your case can be upgraded to a felony charge. So currently, right now, this would be your 5th or 6th arrest for shoplifting, and you've got 4 shoplifting convictions on your record. So please be aware that the prosecutor still has the option of upgrading this to a felony charge. Even if it's candy, even if it's 25-cent stick of chewing gum. If you have 3 or more shoplifting convictions, your case can be qualified for a felony charge. Stay away from the Sprouts grocery store at Piedmont Avenue. And if you return to that location, you'll be arrested again. Your next court date is going to be October 31st. Thank you.
Was that a good bond?
That's a good bond. He doesn't qualify for a signature bond.
Thank you. You got it. You too. Next, Your Honor, we're gonna go to position number 6, Mr. Avery Jones.
Okay. Mr. Avery Jamil Jones is accused of criminal trespass from yesterday, and case number is 24 CR 7120C. Mr. Jones, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Mr. Howard?
20, on probation, burglary, robbery, false imprisonment, financial transaction card fraud.
Where's the probation?
Here. Simple battery against a person 65 years or older or who is pregnant. 23 SC 190107. And this probation started in February. On probation in the cab. Possession of tools, possession of a knife or a firearm during the commission. Criminal attempt to commit a felony. 2022 probation, 2020 probation, 2024 probation, and 2 FTAs from 2018.
2018?
Correct.
Just beyond 5 years, okay. Ms. Mokeke? I'm sorry, you're on mute?
Sorry, Your Honor. I also had that he was arrested earlier this year, April 30th, 2024, for home invasion. This incident occurred at 2050 Fleet Street Southwest in Atlanta. The defendant is accused of breaking the bedroom window of Cynthia Rogers and entering her home. The victim found the defendant hiding inside of her bathroom. The defendant claimed that he had permission to be there. However, the victim states that she doesn't know him and she never gave him permission to be in her home. Given the concerning nature of this incident and the defendant's history, the state's recommendation is a $1,500 surety bond, that he have no further contact with Ms. Cynthia Rogers, that he stay away from that incident location, and that he have a social worker visit and a BHET. We also would ask that he have no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond, and ask that you sound for Ms. Cynthia Rogers.
Cynthia Rogers? All right, Mr. Cook?
Yes, Your Honor, we would object to that bond as far as the, we'd leave the social worker visit, BHET up to you.
Okay. $1,500 surety bond. Stay away 200 yards away from the incident location. No contact with Cynthia Rogers. No illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. I don't know whether a social worker visit is required. So, Mr. Cook, I would recommend one, and just to rule out any competency issues. Otherwise, we will see him on October 31st.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Excuse me, sir.
Who are you speaking to?
I'm talking to my public defender.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to ask, like, how would I be getting my property because I was living there. She's saying she don't know me and stuff like that. I was living there. That's what I'm trying to see. Like all my property there, all my clothes, everything.
You cannot return to that location at all.
So how would I get stuff?
If you believe you have items there, you can file a civil suit for the fair market value of your items. But you are not to return to that location. You're not to communicate with Cynthia Rogers. You're not to call her from the jail. Nothing at all. No comunicado. Thank you.
Next, y'all, is going to be position number 7, Mr. Kirkland.
And who represents Mr. Kirkland?
I do, Your Honor. Keith
Mr.
Cook.
Cook, how do you pronounce his first name?
I'm not sure he can help us with that, I guess.
All right.
Keon.
How?
Keon.
Keon. Okay, that's Mr. Keon, middle name begins with a Z, last name Kirkland, is accused of battery, family violence, and cruelty in the third degree from September 9th, 2024. His accusation number is 24 CR 7128E. Mr. Kirkland, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
6.
6 cycles?
On probation, ag assault, possession of a firearm during the commission. 23 SC 186711.
186711?
Correct.
Ag assault and possession of a firearm
During the commission.
during the commission, okay?
On probation in Coweta for felony theft by taking. 2022 probation, 2022 fleeing an officer, and 2018 FTA.
2018 FT, okay. Ms. Mukeke?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident occurred at 3275 Washington Road in East Point. The victim in this case is Jacqueline Conover, who shares children with the defendant. The parties were having a verbal dispute because the defendant took money from the victim's account that was designated for rent. During the argument, the defendant began to repeatedly punch the victim in the face, causing swelling and bruising to her face. The party's 6-year-old child with the initials ZC was present and witnessed the assault. Based on the information in the warrant and also the report, this victim has faced numerous types of abuse from this defendant for quite some time. We have spoken with Ms. Conover, who says her and the defendant are in an on-again, off-again relationship, and they do live together at the incident location and share 3 children. She confirmed the events in the warrant, states this is not the first time the defendant has been violent towards her and not the first time the police have been called, but this is the first time he has been arrested. She did file for a TPO after this incident and was granted a 30-day ex parte, but because she missed the hearing to extend it for 12 months, it was dismissed, but she does plan on filing a new TPO. She is in fear of the defendant and wants no contact and wants him to stay away from the residence. Based on his history, there is a risk that he will reoffend. There is a concern that he will intimidate this witness. He does have a history of violent arrests and violent convictions. The state's recommendation is a $4,000 surety bond for the battery, a $1,000 surety bond for the cruelty to children, that he have no further contact with the victim or the minor children, he stay away from that incident location, that he take an FVIP course, or at the very least that he have some anger awareness, and that he have no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. I would ask the court to sound for Ms. Jacqueline Conover.
Ms. Jacqueline Conover? Okay. I have someone call also Keon, is that his sister, Keone Kirkland, on Zoom? Did you want to chime in?
I don't know who it is. That's my name.
Well, I believe your sister's name begins with almost same spelling, but ends with an E. I don't know if that's the same person.
I doubt it's her.
Well, she's not speaking up, so we're moving on. Mr. Cook?
Your Honor, my client is 28 years old. He was working at Wendy's. He's not sure, since he's missed some days of work here, that position would be available. So we're looking at someone with a fairly modest income, and we would hope the court would keep that in mind when setting bond.
Well, my big concern is I'm reading the allegation, well, the facts from his convicted case, and they're scarily similar. On the battery family violence, it's going to be a $7,500 surety bond. On the cruelty, it's going to be a $2,500 surety bond. His total bond is $10,000. This is going to be a surety. Next court date is October 31st. No further contact with Jacqueline Conover, to stay away from the incident location, so you cannot return to the same house as Ms. Conover. With respect to the child that you share with Ms. Conover, ZC, you have to have no contact with ZC. The only way you can have any kind of joint visitation or joint custody is to file a legitimation action in the appropriate court and get a court order to establish your parenting plan. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Next, Your Honor, is going to be position number 11, Mr. Rakeem Taylor.
That'll be my case, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. McLean. And sir, your client is Rakeem Malcolm Taylor, accused of reckless conduct from September 25th of this year. His accusation is 24 CR 7124F. Mr. Taylor, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Michael McLean. Mr. Howard?
8 total. 2012 trespass no-low. 2009 FTA and probation. That's it.
All right. Ms. Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. On September 25th of 2024, officers responded to the incident location of 1940 Fisher Road on reports of shots fired. Officers arrived at the location and found Mr. Taylor in the living room of his apartment with several beers surrounding him. Mr. Taylor stated that he had been drinking throughout the night and was at war. Mr. Taylor stated that he was in his living room and started shooting out of his window. Officers located a black Smith & Wesson as well as 5 spent shell casings in the apartment. Officers also found Mr. Taylor's roommate, Mr. Cedric Reed, hiding in his bedroom of the apartment. The state's recommendation in this case, Your Honor, is a $10,000 surety bond, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol, stay away from 1940 Fisher Road, and no further contact with Mr. Cedric Reed.
Wow, stay away from his home, no contact with roommate.
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
And Cedric, what was his last name? Reed? Cedric
Reed.
Jerome Reed. All right. Are you on Zoom? Okay. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client is Mr. Taylor is 46 years old. He works full-time for the city of Atlanta as a sanitation worker. That is the sanitation department. The arrest record was accurate, and I appreciate his honesty. Not saying that most people aren't, but seems a good guy, but this is an extremely foolish situation, Your Honor. We would really ask the court to consider a signature bond for him, even if there are restrictions on his going back home. The no contact is appropriate, and he'll have to live with that.
This allegedly occurred on a Wednesday morning, on or about
Right.
4 to 6 in the morning. A weapon being discharged out in the public street from a private window, according to this warrant, with the roommate allegedly hiding and cowering in his bedroom for fear of his
Correct.
life. Okay. Mr. Taylor, I appreciate anyone who wants to enjoy the comfort of his home and drink to his heart's content. But once you get a firearm involved, things take a different turn. Your bond is going to be set at $5,000. It is a surety bond. You are to have no contact with Cedric Jerome Reed. You are to leave 1940 Fisher Road, Southeast, apartment 77A in Atlanta, Georgia. And you are to update the court with your new address within 30 days of being released. I'm going to let you speak, but just hold on. I want you to pay attention to the conditions. So you're allowed a one-time visit to the apartment to get your personal belongings, but you can only visit with a police officer. You must have a police officer escort you to the apartment to retrieve your belongings. There's only a couple things you're not allowed to retrieve, and that is your firearms and any ammunition associated with it. All those items must be taken by the police and destroyed. From this point onwards, you're not allowed to own a firearm. You're not allowed to have one on your person, in your home, in your possession, in any vehicle you occupy anywhere near you. Do you understand?
Yes.
And the other thing you can't be doing is no alcohol. Those days are coming to a halt until further order of the court. No alcohol, no guns, no illegal drugs.
Your Honor, if during the one-time law enforcement officer escorted visit, if it turns out that his roommate has vacated, could we rule that he could stay?
Is this a lease? Is he renting the place?
I'm not sure. We haven't had any contact with the roommate to see if he wanted to stay or not. Mr. Taylor, who's on the lease?
We rent a room. It's a separate room. So I have a lease and he has his own
Yeah.
lease.
He's not allowed back in the property. If he's on a lease, I'm sure the landlord's not going to allow him back in the property. That's it. He needs to update the court with the new address. Okay. Did you have any other questions to ask of Mr. McLean? You can contact him afterwards.
No, I had a question for either one of y'all. What is a surety bond?
You would have, well, go ahead, Mr. McLean.
It's the synonyms are regular bond, good bond, or surety bond. It means that you can come up with 100% of the cash, or you can go to a bonding company and deal with their contract, or you can use Georgia real estate.
Okay.
Your next court date is October 31st. And if you bond out, then we will give you a new court date. But it's very important that you give us your new address within 30 days of being released.
Okay. It's going to be Georgia Works, I'm pretty sure, for treatment and address.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, is going to be position number 13, Mr. Joshua Uhulu. No. Whoa, I'm sorry.
Mr. Joshua, how do you pronounce your last name?
Uhulu.
Uhulu. Okay. Mr. Uhulu, your case is 24 CR 7126G. You've been accused of willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer and failure to obey traffic control devices from October 17, 2024. You have been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Second, 2019 trespass dismissed. Jail's a recommendation.
Okay. Miss Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Nobe was on patrol when he observed Mr. Uhulu run the red light at Westside Parkway near the racetrack on 2645 Old Milton Parkway. When he initiated the traffic stop, Mr. Uhulu pulled into the racetrack parking lot, and as Officer Nobe was speaking with Mr. Uhulu, trying to get his information, Mr. Uhulu kept asking if he could use the restroom. Officer Nobe stated that he could not and that he needed to finish the stop before Mr. Uhulu was allowed to leave the vehicle. Despite that, Mr. Uhulu got out of the vehicle and would not return to the vehicle despite Officer Nobe's commands to do so. Mr. Uhulu continued into the racetrack and Officer Nobe attempted to detain Mr. Uhulu, but Mr. Uhulu pulled away and walked into the restroom. He was detained after he walked out of the restroom. For the count of willful obstruction, the state is recommending a $500 signature bond. For the failure to obey traffic signs or to obey signals and traffic devices, the state is recommending a $500 signature bond, as well as no drugs, weapons, or alcohol.
All right. Mr. McLean, this will be a total of $1,000 signature bond through the jail, $500 on each count. No driving unless he has a valid driver's license, adequate insurance, and proper registration. His next court date will be sent to his address. Mr. Uhulu, make sure that we have your correct address with the court at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next case, please.
Next is going to be position number 14, Mr. Vasquez. Go to the third one. We'll come forward.
Mr. Julio Cesar Vasquez Jr. is accused of criminal trespass from October 17, 2024. Mr. Vasquez, I don't mean to be rude, but do you speak and understand English?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Your accusation number is 24CR007125J. You have been advised of your rights, and Mr. McLean is your attorney. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
11. 2021 ag assault dismissed. Probations from 2016 and 17. 2015 FTA, 2015 bail jumping conviction.
2015?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
23rd. I think he's homeless.
Okay,
To the book.
understood. Thank you. Ms. Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. On October 17th, 2024, Mr. Julio Vasquez was found on the platform of the Georgia State MARTA station by MARTA PD. After the station had been closed, the MARTA officer asked him to leave, and Mr. Vasquez refused to leave. After being detained, it was found that Mr. Vasquez has a permanent ban from MARTA that was issued back in October of 2021. The state's recommendation is a $1,000 good bond, stay away from all MARTA properties, and no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
The 2021 ag assault, is that still an open case?
It is not an open case, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client is 33 years old. Despite the residentially being challenged, amazingly, he has a extremely good job. He's a salesperson at a very high-end retail store and has been for 7 years. So
Where?
there is some, it's at Nordstrom's.
Okay.
And so it's interesting. We have almost a cognitive dissonance between different parts of what we usually hear in stability factors. So I would assert that as a stability factor. He is a local person. Tony Drive in Decatur would be his address. He's going to get good mail there. He has a fiance. He's got a lot of stuff going for him. There's not it was super cold that night. We won't go into the MARTA thing. So we would ask the court to consider the signature bond, Your Honor.
All right, bond is set at 500. It's a surety bond. Stay away from all MARTA in accordance with any active suspensions. Mr. Vasquez, once you post bond, make sure that you come back to court when summoned. Otherwise, we will see you on October 31st. Please be aware that you have a permanent ban from all MARTA property. If you want to get arrested again, please feel free to use MARTA. Otherwise, stay away from MARTA because that's your first-class invite back to jail. Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, is going to be position number 15, Mr. Marlon Wright.
Do we know what's going on with positions 1, 2, and 3, Mr. Bacon?
I was waiting for his private attorney to come on, but he said he'll utilize the public defender's office.
Okay. Mr. Marlon Jermaine Wright is accused of battery family violence from June 6, 2024. Mr. Wright, your case number is 24CR7129E. You've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
11. 2024 probation. 2022 possession of a firearm by convicted felon conviction. 2019, 20, and 21 probation. 2013 burglary first degree conviction.
Any of those probations involve battery family violence or?
Not sure.
Okay.
And 2010 ag assault first offender.
Ms. Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. On June 6th of 2024, officers responded to Grady Hospital after being called regarding an incident between Mr. Wright and Miss India Jenkins. Mr. Wright got upset with Miss Jenkins after going through her phone and punched her with a closed fist in the face multiple times. As I stated, officers had to meet Miss Jenkins at Grady Hospital. When they arrived, they observed swelling, missing teeth, and blood coming from Miss Jenkins's face. The two of them previously lived together, which is the basis for the family violence charge. I will inform you, Your Honor, that the state is actually looking to upgrade this case as a felony. However, we just did not hear back from the DA's office regarding that transfer. court prior to today's hearing. The state is asking for a $10,000 cash bond on this case. No further contact with Miss India Jenkins. Stay away from the incident location of 3466 Fair Lane Drive. We ask that he be required to take an FVIP course, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And I do believe that Miss Jenkins is on the Zoom today.
Miss India Jenkins, if you want to address the court, please unmute and start your video.
I'm trying to start my video.
All right.
See, I don't see the.
I can hear you. If the host will please prompt Miss Jenkins to start video.
Come on.
There we go. Now you just need to unmute.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Are you lying down?
No, well, yeah, I was on the couch waiting.
All right. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
What would you like to tell us?
So, I am not worried or fearful for anything concerning him. We have been working together because he was diagnosed with some things earlier this year, and I did not recommend that he go to jail. I figured that he could be taken to like counseling or psychiatric or something like that, because he has things going on from being in jail that I feel like led to this event. And I knew that being with him. We were not living together at the time. We lived together like 5 years ago. And the charges, I was hoping they would be as minimal as possible, because I feel like he does need to come home and straighten some other things out. I did not know that they would try and charge him with a felony. I was just trying to get help for myself, assistance for my situation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. You may mute your screen. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client is 31 years old. He did successfully complete his felony probation on that first offender matter.
Mm-hmm.
He works in landscaping for a fellow named A.J. Norman. He has a stable mailing address and actual residential address in Powder Springs, Georgia. So we have that complete address. There shouldn't be any problem in making court. We would like to ask the court to consider a signature bond, or if not, a $1,000 or $2,000 surety bond.
Okay. Bond is set at $3,000. It is a surety bond. Mr. Wright, you are to have no contact with India Jenkins, although she appears to be very open to communicating with you. By law and by court order, you are to stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. You cannot live with her. You cannot speak with her either in person, through a phone, or through a computer, or even through any kind of social media or third party. I'm going to require you to be continue with any medical or mental health treatment that you're receiving, and to be compliant with all treatment and medication. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. Your next court date is October 31st. Thank you.
Your Honor, we can go to position 1, 2, and 3 now. Mr. Bacon.
Okay. Mr. Cook or Mr. McLean, have you had a chance to confer with Mr. Marquess Bacon?
Yes, Your Honor, I have talked to him.
All right. Mr. Marquess Bacon has got 3 separate cases with the court this afternoon. Position 1 is simple battery family violence from April 1st, 2024. Case number 24CR 7116E. Second case is 24CR 7117E, accused of theft by taking from April 11th, 2024. The third case is 24CR 7118E, another charge of theft by taking from May 11th, 2024. Mr. Marquez, you've been advised of your rights and your appointed counsel is Mr. Keith Cook. Did you have private counsel that you were waiting on?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
who's that private counsel?
David Cook. I'm sorry, David West.
David West. And have you been in touch with him?
I know my mom spoke with him yesterday, but I have not. Recently I have, but not since this situation.
Okay. Well, right now you're entitled to public defense representation. And once Mr. West steps into the picture, the public defender's office will withdraw from the case. So please exercise your right to remain silent and we'll proceed with Mr. Cook. Mr. Howard, any priors?
19,
19 cycles?
2023, battery trespass that's open in state court. 23 CR 006 666E.
Repeat again?
The whole thing?
23 CR 006?
666E.
Oh, okay.
You got 2 bench warrants, I think, out of Morrison's court.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you got some assault from 05-06 conviction.
All right.
2020 interfering with custody.
2020 interfering with custody?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Mokeke?
Yes, Your Honor. Position 1, the simple battery. This incident occurred April 1st, 2024. The victim in this case is Charnette Steverson. The parties were having a verbal dispute because the victim told the defendant that the clothes his sister had bought their daughter were inappropriate for her age. During the argument, the defendant struck the victim in the face and then pushed her backwards into a wall where she hit the back of her head. Our office has spoken with the victim, who says her and the defendant are no longer in a relationship and they no longer live together. She says she no longer lives at the incident location. She did confirm the events in the warrant and said she had a small fracture in her jaw as a result of this incident, but she's not sure if she still has the medical documentation. She says this is not the first time that the defendant has been violent towards her, and they do have an open case, that 23 CR 666E case. The defendant was ordered to have no contact with her and to stay away from the residence. The victim says she hasn't seen or spoken to the defendant since this incident. That 23 CR 666E case, in that incident, the defendant grabbed the victim by her hair and dragged her across the ground, causing her hair to be ripped out. He also broke open the door to her home. He was given a $3,000 good bond, told to have no further contact and to stay away from 6871 Peachtree Dunwoody Road, which I believe is the residence of this current incident. Given the fact that he has a current open case of violence against the same victim, there is a concern he will reoffend. There is a concern he will intimidate the witness. And I think he has open bench warrants as well, so he tends not to respond to the legal process, and there is a concern he will be a flight risk. The state's recommendation for the simple battery is a $3,500 cash bond, and that he have no further contact with Charnette Stevenson, undergo an FBIP, and have no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond.
What about, yes,
Okay.
with regards to the other 2 cases as well?
Position 2, the theft by taking. That incident occurred April 11th. The victim in that case is Carlos Blount. The defendant is accused of taking the victim's armodafinil pills, which were located in the victim's book bag. They were about 90 250 milligram pills in the victim's book bag. The victim did tell officers that he believes the defendant is suffering from behavioral health and substance abuse issues. We spoke with the victim, who says he owns a nonprofit that the defendant is a part of, said they were at an event and his medication was in his vehicle and the defendant was the last person in that vehicle. He states that he didn't personally observe the defendant taking the pills, but when he asked the defendant about it, the defendant became very aggressive and started to argue. The victim in this case says that they've spoken a little bit since this incident and he's not in fear and wants to have contact. The defendant currently has a $1,500 surety bond. In this case, we ask that that surety bond remain at $1,500, that he have no violent contact with Carlos Blount, and obviously no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. Position 3, the theft by taking. The victim in this case is Leah Smith. The incident location is 2713 Noble Creek Drive in Atlanta. The defendant went to the victim's house and wanted her to open the door and let him in. When she refused, he became upset and then removed the camera from her door. There is video footage from the camera showing him placing his hands over it before the footage stops. The victim called him afterwards about him taking the camera and recorded the conversation. When she told the defendant that she called the police, he stated, "That's more charges. I keep racking them up." The victim did tell officers she believes the defendant was drunk at the time of this incident. The defendant does have a case with this victim that's open. That case number is 22 CR 006169E. That is a battery criminal trespass. Also before Judge Morrison, I believe there is a bench warrant issued for this case as well. In this case, the defendant was accused of punching the victim in the face and kneeing her in the thigh, causing visible injuries to her face and her thigh. He was given a $2,000 surety bond in order to have no further contact. That bond was issued September 13th, 2022. Given the fact that he is in violation of that bond as well, the state's recommendation for this case is a $1,500 surety bond, a $1,500 cash bond, that he have no further contact with Leah Smith as he's already ordered to do so, and that he stay away from her residence, the incident location, no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. I'm not sure if any of the victims are here, but I would ask that you sound for them.
All right. Leah Smith or Carlos Blount or Sharnette Steverson. If you are present, this will be the time to unmute. I don't see anyone else on Zoom. Mr. Cook?
Yes, Your Honor, my client is 40 years old. He's not currently working, so we'd hope the court would consider that when setting bond. He does deny the allegations as set forth in the warrant. I believe Mr. Blunt actually is his brother. Beyond that, nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Yes, so I do see that David West is representing Mr. Bacon in the other two matters. So if he plans to retain Mr. West for these three new cases, that would be completely up to him and Mr. David West. Mr. Bacon, I've already indicated you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say about the facts of these cases or any of your other open cases, your statements can and will be used against you. If you choose to waive your right to remain silent, that would be a decision that you would have to make on your own, unless Mr. Cook has something to add.
I would ask him to remain silent, Your Honor.
And we have notified the prosecutor in the other two cases, so I'm sure a motion to revoke bond is forthcoming.
All right. Well, in the other two open cases, the motion to reinstate his original bonds have been denied by Judge Morrison, and he actually has a hearing before her on October 23rd, which is next week, on those two open cases. But on the current cases that he's got before the court, on the position number one, that's going to be a $3,500 cash bond only. No further contact with Sharnette Steverson to stay away from 6871 Peachtree Dunwoody Road, and no illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. Next court date is October 31st, unless, of course, Judge Morrison decides to address all the open cases. He's also going to be, if he does make bond, he's also going to be required to be equipped with an ankle monitor for a period of 12 months from the time that he's released from jail, and the monitoring fees shall be paid by the defendant. On count two, theft by taking with regards to Carlos Blount, that's going to be a $1,000 cash bond only. Same conditions with the addition of no contact with Carlos Blount, ankle monitor, no illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. With regards to position number three, is going to be on the theft by taking. That's going to be $1,000 cash bond only. And also, again, no contact with Leah Smith. Stay away from her home and wherever she is. And again, the ankle monitor requirement. Monitoring fees should be paid by Mr. Bacon. And as I've indicated, this ankle monitor will be on him for a duration of 12 months unless he gives us another reason to extend the period where he has to have an ankle monitor. Right? All right, that concludes the calendar.
Your Honor,
Yes.
yesterday there was a case, Carwan Redding, 24 CR 00715F, that was accused. I don't think they had a bond hearing for it, but that case has been accepted by the DA's office for transfer. I did send that transfer order over to Mr. Jordan to send to you for signature, but I'm guessing he is not here today.
He is,
So-
if he is, but if you can, I haven't had a chance to look my emails, but if you can forward that to Casey Strong.
Will do.
All right. Just to go over this calendar, position number 1 is a 3,500 cash bond. 2 is a $1,000 cash bond. 3 is a $1,000 cash bond with an ankle monitor. Reset date is October 31st. Position 4 is a $1,000 surety, October 31st. Position 5 is a 2,500 signature bonds pretrial, level 1, further notice. Position number 6 is going to be a 1,500 surety, reset October 31st. Position 7 is a $10,000 surety, reset October 31st. Position 8 is a $5,000 surety, reset October 31st. 9 is a $1,500 surety, reset October 31st. 10 Stevenson is a 2,500 surety, reset October 31st. 11 is a $5,000 surety, reset October 31st. 12 Terry is a $1,250 surety bond, reset October 31st. 13 Uhulu is a $1,000 signature bond through the jail, 500 on each count. 14 Vasquez is a $500 surety, reset October 31st. 15 Wright is a $3,000 surety, reset October 31st. All right.
Your Honor?
Yes, Ms. Todd?
I apologize. I have actually prepared a motion to have position 12, Mr. Terry's case transferred to the DA's office. Based on his criminal history and the prior convictions for theft by shoplifting. Can I send that over to Ms. Casey Strong as well?
Yes, but it would be up to the DA's office to accept it before I can transfer it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so hold off on that until the DA's office decides to accept it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, folks, I'll see you all tomorrow. Hang on, I have a kind of breakdown for 7 and 9. Okay. Going back to position 7, that's Keon Kirkland. On the battery family violence is 7,500. Count 2 cruelty is 2,500. They're both surety bonds. And reset October 31st. Position 9, Sonia Stevens is $1,000 surety on count 1 affray and $500 surety on public drunk. $1,500 surety, reset October 31st. All right, folks, if there are no other questions, y'all have a great Friday and we'll see y'all bright and early at 2 p.m. tomorrow for our next C calendar. All right, Mr. McLean, Mr. Cook, everyone, Ms. McKechnie, Ms. Todd, don't think of us this evening, think of us tomorrow. Okay.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one, Judge.
Take care.